welcome to Elements of Ayurveda, Empowering Wisdom of Life. I'm your host, Colette, and in this podcast, I hope to empower you to take charge of your own health by sharing the holistic teachings of Ayurveda, the ancient healing tradition from India. We will also discuss topics like health and wellness, nutrition, yoga, fitness, meditation, breath work, and much more, as well as interviewing lots of inspiring people along the way. My humble wish is to help you to connect to your true nature, to Mother Nature, and to each other. If you like the content, be sure to subscribe to the show, and the new episodes will automatically download for you to enjoy. This show is for you, and so I would really appreciate your feedback. You can also do a ratings and review in the iTunes section. Thanks in advance, and now here's the show. Hello and welcome to Elements of Ayurveda. Today we're going to discuss Ayurvedic products. When I have my online consultations, when I'm doing my group cleanses, I'm always concerned with where people source their products that I suggest, whether it's the oils or the herbs or the spices. We want to make sure that they're organic, that they're high quality, because we're using these products to help heal our body. So we really need to be aware of what we're putting in and on our body. And this is why I always recommend Banyan Botanicals. There are a lot of products available in the supermarkets now. We can buy them on Amazon, but we don't know where these products are coming from. We don't know the source of these products. We don't know how they're tested, what they're mixed with. But with Banyan Botanicals, this is a company I trust. I know that the values of the company are very high, that it really has a great philosophy and is keeping in tune with the philosophy of Ayurveda. They have goodwill throughout their whole process, from using farmers since the conception of their company, that they're fairly traded products. They then import them into the US, and that they're tested. A lot of testing going on, very high quality, and that the overall company has a really great value system, and you can tell that they have a great passion for Ayurveda. It's not just about selling the products. They produce great material and share great material on their website. And this is why today I'm going to interview Devang Shah, who's the VP of Operations for Banyan Botanicals. And we're going to talk about his story, about he came to Ayurveda, which is a great story. We're going to talk about the company Banyan Botanicals, how they source their products, how they test their products, and the philosophy of the company. So I want for you to understand that it's important to purchase your products, particularly your Ayurvedic products, from a company that you know the process, you know where they're sourced, you know how they're tested. And we get into that in the interview today, so it will give you some confidence in purchasing from Banyan Botanicals as well. Now, they do ship internationally also, and you can check what countries they ship to on their website, and I'll put a link to the website in the show notes. So now here's myself and Devang chatting about Ayurveda and Banyan Botanicals and the great products and how they can heal our body and our mind. So enjoy the interview. Hi, Devang, and welcome to Elements of Ayurveda.
Hi, Colette. It's good to be here with you today.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate you joining us, and you're VP of Operations from Banyan Botanicals. It's a company that I really respect, and I use a lot of their products. So I'm really excited to find out more about the company today.
Great. Yeah, I appreciate that you use our products. We love what we do, and we're really passionate about Ayurveda, and we hope that transmits through the products that we make available to our customers.
It certainly does. I always have such a great experience with your company. The customer service is always excellent. I always feel like I'm talking to friends.
Thank you.
Well, before we go into the business end of things, I'd love to ask some questions to you. And where did you first get introduced to Ayurveda? How did it come into your life? This is a question I love to ask people.
Yeah, I got introduced to Ayurveda, as many people have in the West, through Dr. Vasant Lad, who runs the Ayurvedic Institute here in Albuquerque, New Mexico, where I currently live. In 2005, a few things actually were going on in my life with various friends, and multiple things pointed us back to the Ayurvedic Institute. One was a friend of mine who was finishing medical school and not satisfied with conventional medicine, looking to do something a little bit different than the norm, got introduced to the Ayurvedic Institute. Simultaneously, a friend of mine herniated a disc in his neck, and Western medicine, the only solutions Western medicine offered at the time was surgery. And he was looking for alternatives and came to the Ayurvedic Institute for treatment, and had a huge success. And after sort of both of those things triangulated, I was like, well, I need to do something with Ayurveda. Being of Indian origin, we're exposed to many of the principles, but in a almost superstitious way, like, grandmother told you to do this, so you do it.
Okay.
And my wife actually, at the time we got introduced, went and studied at the Ayurvedic Institute. And, we spent the year and a half apart, but she would call back and she'd be like, remember those things mom told us to do or grandma told us to do? Well, there's a reason behind it. There's these elements and how they connect to our bodies. And so it was a really neat exposure. And then from that, we started practicing little things and saw a vast difference in my own health, my own well-being, how I felt. And so from there, I just started diving in myself as well.
I love it. I love it. I got goosebumps when you're telling those stories about, your friend who was studying to be a Western doctor and was looking for something more. And then the other friend who had such great healing aspects with Ayurveda. It's just wonderful. And I love hearing the story of how it comes into their lives, because everyone has a different experience, but it's like this awakening or this realization of the depth of knowledge of this ancient science. It's amazing.
We had a precursor that I've heard many times, but Dr. Ladd has written an introductory book to Ayurveda called The Science of Self-Healing. And about 2 years before we got introduced to the actual institute, we were in India, and my dad said to we were going to a bookstore, and my dad was there in the country with us visiting as well. And we're like, hey, Dad, do you want any books? And he was like, can you pick me a book on Ayurveda? And I was, I really didn't think much of it. And we went to this bookstore that we liked and asked the clerk there, hey, what books do you have on Ayurveda? And he pointed to this, shelf. There's probably about 50 different books of varying depths. And we're like, which ones are good? And he pulled out 3 or 4, and we grabbed this one, Science of Self-Healing by Dr. Ladd, and we took it home. And funny thing is, I think I read the book before my dad had finished it, and then put it on the shelf, didn't think anything of it. 2 years later, we get introduced to Dr. Ladd, and I'm like, I think I've seen this guy somewhere. I don't remember where, but I've seen him.
You look familiar.
Yeah, my wife remembers, and she's like, hey, remember that book we got, Dad? And sure enough, we go and grab that book, and there you go. And so it's kind of like a cosmic coming home.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. That is absolutely great. And so what does Ayurveda mean to you? You talk about this huge, realization that it's coming into your life from all these different aspects, and it was like these messages coming to you. This is the subtle messages coming to you, and then you eventually end up in Albuquerque and with Dr. Ladd. And what does it mean to you now? For me, Ayurveda is on one level really, it's complex when you learn it. There's all these qualities and doshas and elements and herbs and diet choices, but really it kind of simply put for me, it's really listening to our own intelligence within. Our bodies know certain things, and we know how we feel when we do the things that are in line with our sort of body, mind, and spirit. And we also know how we feel when we do things that are out of line. And it's just, unfortunately, many times, even with the wisdom of Ayurveda, I still choose to go against that higher wisdom. But, with the lens of Ayurveda, you can learn to listen to yourself and not kind of brush it off. Simple things like if it's hot outside and I'm feeling frustrated and irritated, maybe I should avoid eating jalapeno salsa with chips and, and a hot drink. Right. So it's things I think if even without Ayurveda, we would know in ourselves if we listen to what our body likes. And so that's really what it means to me is like, how can we listen to what our bodies, our minds, our spirit is telling us and be in alignment with that? Ayurveda gives us a nice lens with which to see that more clearly.
than before, having that awareness of these, air, fire, water, earth, space, and am I Vata, Pitta, or Kapha? Which of these combinations am I predominantly, and what happens when they go out of balance? And you learn a little of these keys, and you can start listening. Oh, when I'm traveling and I'm already Vata predominant, and then I shouldn't go have the raw salad with chickpeas on it, or I shouldn't go have the bean and cheese burrito at the Chipotle at the airport. I can choose the things that sort of align, or, hey, let's do some grounding exercises. I don't need to, I'm now traveling, I've got high Vata, I ate this food that didn't settle well, and I feel like I need to exercise. Well, instead of choosing to go for a run, I'll choose something else.
Yeah. It's such great wisdom. And like you said, you grew up with these principles, and they were more or less like old wives' tales kind of thing. But when we actually learn the knowledge, and it gives us such a great foundation to where we can make holistic choices for our body and our mind and our spirit, and really have that knowledge and have that subtle awareness of our body.
Yeah,
it's wonderful. So why do you think now Ayurveda is so important today, in our world today?
I think it's important because people are looking to take more things into their own hands. I remember growing up, everything you just trusted the doctor. The doctor said this, the doctor was right, and it was good for you. And I think doctors have their role, and they're many times still right. But more and more people are looking to be self-empowered in their health, their well-being, how they feel. And I think, as we were talking, Ayurveda gives you this lens by which to look at your own health and well-being in a much more informed and deep way. And so it's got a huge role if people can understand these basic principles, and it puts the power back in their own hands. And people are looking for that.
Yeah, I agree. And really helping people take responsibility for their own health and feel empowered. I think that's, very true, is just for people to feel like they can make decisions for themselves, because in the end of the day, we know our bodies better than anyone, right? You can go to the doctor with a list of symptoms, but they're not living in your body, and it's hard to convey exactly how you're feeling sometimes.
Yeah, and I think there's many things that even an Ayurvedic practitioner, where it's out of scope of me doing it for myself, a good Ayurvedic practitioner can guide you in ways, if you're willing to do the effort long term, which I think people are. Many times I think we forget, like, whatever ailment I'm facing, generally it didn't happen within a day.
Right.
It was habits, poor choices, or uninformed choices that I didn't even know would cause this, that get me to that space. And if I'm okay understanding that, okay, it took me some time to get to this place, I have the time to unwind it. I don't need the quick fix, or the quick fix isn't going to get me all the way there. Then Ayurveda, with a practitioner guiding you, also can give you that. If I'm willing to put the same time it took me to get there, I can unwind from certain things that I unknowingly got myself into, or maybe even knowingly.
Yeah, that's very true. It's having the patience and know that this, doing it naturally with Ayurveda is going to take time, but you have to think about the amount of time you got. That illness or whatever it is manifest in your body, that took a long time. Yeah. So we have to unwind all that. And that kind of leads me into my next question is, what are some of the common myths that you have heard about Ayurveda? And is there anything that you would like to clarify for people?
I guess one of the things, obviously, that always comes with any of these ancient wisdom sciences is that they're unscientific. It's based on myths, or it's based on guesses that people had, or they're no longer applicable today. And, I think when you get into Ayurveda, it becomes extremely scientific, but it's within its lens of how it looks at the world.
Sure.
So that'd be one myth, that there is a science behind it, and that science applied will get you the results that you're looking for. That would be, one big myth.
Yeah, and like that, we find now, I'm reading modern research that's agreeing with what Ayurveda knew 5,000 years ago, in that how the digestive system is paramount to our overall health, and so modern science now is agreeing with what this ancient wisdom.
Yeah, it's funny you mention that. So one of the old kind of the funny things about an Indian family is kind of perceived as either rude or you don't talk about it in maybe Western cultures or societies or families, but like when I got up in the morning, the first thing my mom asked me is, did you go to the toilet?
Yeah.
Do you have a good bowel movement? It was very common language discussion, even oftentimes at the dinner table, this conversation of, is your stomach clean translated, that'd be the literal phrase,
Right.
Come up and you wouldn't talk about that normally,
No, it's
sort of
true.
in our Western context, Western culture. But, it was known that this is the key, because if you think about it, we're putting stuff into our bodies, processing it for energy and removing the waste.
Mm-hmm.
In any system that you have that takes an input, processes it to produce, and then emits a waste, if there's a problem with that system, you don't get optimal results. So take an engine, for example. I'm an engineer by trade.
Okay.
Take an engine, for example. So if the input is good, you put good gasoline into the input, then if the engine's doing its job right, it can process that gasoline, produce power to motor your car, and then there was a waste product that comes out of it. If at any point along that path there's a problem, generally you don't have optimal performance. Your engine is going to run as efficiently. You're going to have, smelly exhaust, very similar, right? And so for us, a measure of if we feel like we're putting quality inputs in, so the quality of the food that we choose is good, then it's up to our bodies to process that food in an optimal way to give us optimal energy. And is it doing that or is it not, And
Yeah, exactly. And I do think
that's all digestion.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's very important for us to get over this this funniness about talking about our bowel movements is, as a practitioner, I talk about bowel movements all the time.
Yeah.
And I do think that parents should be checking their children's bowel movements, particularly when they're younger, because that's exactly how you know what's going on in your child's body. It was funny, as I was just home in Ireland, my father wasn't well, and, I was asking him, well, what are your bowel movements like? And it felt really strange at first. And he was, looking at me kind of weirdly, but then he understood. I explained to him the importance of, checking your bowel movements daily and seeing the consistency, and that's a direct sign of what's going on in your body. So, but at first definitely was, so Dad, tell me about your bowel movements. But yeah, it's about getting over that and understanding that this is, it's like the flow of nature through our body, right? If we're digesting, assimilating, and eliminating, we want that nature flowing through us. So.
Right. Yeah. When I was young, not young, I didn't know better. But then when I got to sort of middle school, high school age, again, same things would happen. If I got sick, that would be the first question. Yeah. And I remember saying to myself, Mom, you're not supposed to ask me that. And now I've got a 6-year-old and,
right.
Today she wasn't feeling that well. So the first question my wife asked her is, did you go to the toilet yesterday? It's that's where everything starts in our bodies in essence.
It's funny how we have this weirdness about it, but it's good to see that people, that the people I'm meeting, they're getting very comfortable talking about it once we address it. And I say in my consultations, look, we're going to be discussing your bowel movements a lot, so any hesitance you have, we need to get over it now. So, and then once you say that, it's fine. We'll get into lots of discussion about it. Great. Well, I love hearing all that background story. And now I'd love for you to tell me a little bit about Banyan Botanicals, how this company came about and the philosophy of the company.
Sure. So Banyan started in 96 here in Albuquerque, New Mexico, 1996, by 2 Ayurvedic enthusiasts and students, again, of Dr. Ladd. So you'll see that theme run quite common here. Scott Cody and Kevin Casey were both students of Dr. Ladd in the late 80s and early 90s. Both worked in Dr. Ladd's herbal pharmacy or herb room at the Ayurvedic Institute for a number of years, mixing formulas and studying with Dr. Ladd. Okay, what is this formula? Why is this client getting this formula for this condition? It's a little bit different than what the client got last week. With similar conditions, and really learning those nuances of the Ayurvedic herbal pharmacy. And so we started in 96 when both of them realized that Ayurveda was starting to get a strong foothold in this country, and there was this immense need for high quality herbs to support practitioners. And that's how the company really started. They left the institute, took their blessings from Dr. Ladd, and started this company, Banyan. Actually, it started as Banyan Trading Company. Banyan Botanicals came next. a few years later as sort of a trademark. And as we moved from being a practitioner-only business to being a direct-to-consumer business, the Banyan Botanicals name came in. But that banyan tree is really, what should I say, indicative of the philosophy. So the idea of a banyan tree providing shade under which trade, commerce, knowledge sharing traditionally would happen in India or parts of the world, this large canopy of wisdom providing this opportunity for people. And the opportunity is for Ayurveda to blossom in the West, for the principles of Ayurveda to really move forward. And so in terms of the philosophy of the company, I would say there's two parts to it. One is around sort of the products themselves. Around the products themselves, there was always a trinity of values from the beginning, and those trinity of values was certified organic herbs that are sustainably sourced and fairly traded. When the company started, none of the herbs were certified organic, but that was a mission from the beginning to move to a space where we could have them certified organic. And sort of the internal slogan we say is, well, it's good for the body, but it's also good for the earth, or as good for the earth as we can be.
Oh, I love that. That's huge in today's world. Yeah, that's great.
And so that's definitely the start on the products. And then sort of as a business, we always wanted to be connected to Ayurveda. So you'll see many companies either using Ayurvedic herbs in their products or that are based on Ayurveda solely, really don't discuss many of the Ayurvedic principles or philosophy. And so Banyan has that very well woven in. You know, we write articles on health conditions, on seasonal routines, we've got in-depth articles and blog articles, but really tying in all the components of Ayurveda. So herbs and supplements being one component of it, but there's your diet component, there's lifestyle, routines, the choices we make, and how do all of those come together to really have me find my space and my optimal health and well-being. And we want to interject ourselves where you are today. You may be an Ayurvedic novice and somebody never heard of Ayurveda, or somebody that's been practicing Ayurveda for years. And we like to hope that we have a way to intersect with you no matter where you are on that journey.
Yeah, I love your website, and I go there frequently to check out the articles and the blogs, and it's amazing content. So for any of you listeners out there, I really recommend you checking out the Banyan Botanicals site for their content. It's superb. Your newsletters are really great.
Thank you.
Thank you. My pleasure. I get a lot of great resource from them. And going back to the products, and I love that, you know, they're organically sourced, they're sustainable, and they're fairly traded. A lot of my clients, you know, sometimes if I recommend something, I always recommend getting it from Banyan Botanicals because I know the quality is good. I know they're organic. However, some clients may go to other sources. They may grab something in the supermarket now because there's some organic or Ayurvedic products available there and brands. However, they will have some warnings. You know, I had a client a few weeks ago who said, there was a warning of there may be lead in this product. And I'd like you to speak to that, first of all, about, you know, the lead in the products and why not all products are created equally, why it's important to know your source of where you're getting your Ayurvedic supplements from.
Sure. I think it's like anything we put in our body. It's good to know where it comes from, you know. As we know today, you know, GMO versus non-GMO, organic, local, all these things are becoming increasingly hot topics for people because we are becoming more aware of what enters our system. And, you know, our supplements should be no different. So I would say first and foremost, for us, we know that we can provide a high quality product by having an established relationship with the people that supply and grow the herbs that we're using. So, you know, we've been using, for the most part, the same set of vendors and farmers for the better part of, say, 10 or 12 years since the move to being certified organic. So maybe even longer than that, 15 years since we started introducing certified organics. We've been working with the same cooperatives in India, visiting them on a yearly or sometimes twice a year basis. And so I think for me, quality starts there, as having a relationship with the person producing the raw materials that then go into your product. Absolutely. Really step one, because there's an establishment of trust of the product, where it's coming from, where it's being grown, how it's being grown. And, there's following sort of the spirit and then the letter, right? And obviously the letter of the law, there's often many shortcuts or ways around. Mm-hmm. So you want to ensure that the persons you're working with or the teams you're working with, they really believe in the spirit as well.
Yes.
That they believe in this concept. They don't want to use pesticides. They don't want to use these different things. Is really, really important. So that's step one. Step two is then having a process of quality testing once you get the materials or before you even get the materials to your door. So this is sort of the trust but verify. Mm-hmm. So we have an established relationship with our vendors, but at the same time we verify every lot. So not only do we do pre-shipment sample testing, so before a shipment leaves India or even within a domestic supplier here, we get a sample of the material before we take possession that we put through a gauntlet of tests. Oh, and then when the final product comes, we also put that through the same set of tests. So it's not just that we tested the sample and we're like, okay, it all checks out. But when the final material comes here and we get, X 100 pounds of a material, mm-hmm. let's say turmeric, for example, we also go through the same set of tests. And the tests generally are around four basic areas. The first is verifying the identity from a gross or a visual perspective. So is this turmeric powder? Does it smell like it? Does it look like it? Does it taste like it? So that's what we call organoleptic testing. Okay. The second item is a little more scientific version of identity. So how do we ensure that turmeric powder doesn't have yellow food coloring, talcum powder added to it? Right. And so for that, we run a more scientific identity test. And there's many ways to do this. There's infrared absorption, there's chemical methodologies. But basically we take the material that's the sample, we run it in a machine against a reference sample for a certain percentage match. Okay. And once the machine basically says, okay, the graph for this thing matches this reference material that we had verified either by a lab or purchased from a reference standard company, then we say, okay, it looked like it physically, it looked, tasted, smelled like turmeric. Okay, now the computer infrared technology also tells you that it's a match. Mm-hmm. So those two kind of verify that, okay, it looks like turmeric and it is turmeric.
Great. Wow.
The next set of safety moves into contamination. Mm-hmm. And there's two types of contamination that we look for. One is microbial contamination, and the second one is metals contamination. Okay. So microbial contamination would be things like E. coli, salmonella, yeast, mold, which are things that you don't want. So we follow the American Herbal Products Association guidelines, which is an association in the U.S. that provides guidelines to herbal products companies on what are safe standards to have. And obviously, these are herbal products, so you'll have some amount of microbial mm-hmm. activity, but there are certain, obviously, levels that are unacceptable. So basically, any amount of salmonella or E. coli is unacceptable. Okay. Egregious, pretty low amounts of yeast and mold, but basically you're looking for a very clean product from this microbial activity point of view. And so we'll run everything through the tests that the American Herbal Products Association recommends for that.
Great. Wow, that's very thorough testing.
Yeah, the next part of safety would be metals contamination. And we know there's, unfortunately, world over, mm-hmm. our groundwater, our air, the earth has pollutants in them. We've done that to ourselves through the mechanization of our world. Right. Typically in North America, arsenic is a bigger issue. Typically in parts in Asia, lead or mercury may be more of an issue. Okay. Generally lead from air pollutants of combustion engines and whatnot. And so we'd run the same set of tests following the American Herbal Products Association guidelines. And obviously some natural products also have some of these elements occurring naturally in them as well. Mm-hmm. So you're never going to get something that's 100% free of any of those things, but are they within the safe harbor limits set by the American Herbal Products Association? So we'll do that testing. When it comes to microbial testing, a lot of times you can treat the product and still be able to use it, because just like you might boil water when you travel overseas in a very remote part of the world, right? You don't boil the herbs, but there's heat treatment methods that you can use to reduce the microbial load.
Okay.
So we determine it in the off chance that if something is high, then we have the opportunity to treat it. We also measure that against whether that's going to degrade the quality of the herb beyond the point of us wanting to use it. Okay. It's very rare that we get, because we're doing a pre-shipment sample, because we've been working with the same vendors, because we know their drying methods, because we know their harvesting methods, it's very rare that we get something that has high microbial load once it gets here. Like maybe one herb in a few hundred.
Okay. So very little. Yeah.
Yeah. If it's got some of the bigger markers on the pre-shipment, we just don't accept that material to start with. So by the time all that happens, maybe 1 out of 200 to 300 receipts that come here might have an issue, and then we make a choice. Do we send it back? Can we do some type of heat treatment, either steam sterilization or dry heat sterilization on the herb, and still preserve its quality in terms of its efficacy as an herb? Great. On the metal side, there's really not much you can do. So that we're obviously very strict on. If it does not meet our limits, well, I can't reach in there and say, okay, now I'm going to remove this lead.
Yeah.
There are ways around it, and this comes to more of the philosophy of your product. So one of the things Banyan believes in is whole plant intelligence. Mm-hmm. We like to use the entire plant. We don't generally, we have a few products that might have extracts, but generally we're not doing extracts. So we're not doing CO2 extraction or some type of ethanol extraction or some type of supercritical extract. That's, there's companies that specialize in that, and that's their philosophy, and that's great. Banyan's generally believed in whole plant intelligence and the traditional Ayurvedic methods. So in those methods, there's really no way to remove the metal. So if there's a metals contamination issue, then that material is rejected. Okay. We ask the vendor what would they like to do with that material. Would they like us to dispose of it, or do they want it sent back? Because there may be parts of the world that are not testing that and may use it. One more thing I did want to address that you mentioned, just to complete the picture, is you mentioned people writing about warnings of lead levels. So there also is the state of California has their own standards, which are unique and different from the American Products or American Herbal Products Association, AHPA. Okay. And that's, if you're a California resident, you've seen that warning all over the place. Yes. If you buy a new car, the front sticker of your car manual will say, this car has products known to the state of California to create cancer or birth defects. Okay. And that, you'll see it at the hardware store. You'll see it in very many products. So California, I'm not a scientist, so don't hold me to this exact thing, but my understanding is when California passed Proposition 65, which not only addresses lead levels, but any sort of chemical that's known to be unsafe to human consumption or have some side effect, they basically created a standard which warnings are required. Oh. And because our products and many herbal products will have naturally occurring levels of some of these chemicals, that warning is then required in the state of California. Okay, interesting. Yes, my client purchased this product in a supermarket in California, so that makes sense. Yeah, we've got on our website, I believe, I don't know the exact, but if you search Banyan Botanicals Prop 65 on Google, we've got an in-depth article there that talks about California Prop 65 and how we approach it. Okay. Companies can do different things. You can reduce your dosing. You can, like I said, use extracts. There's different ways to sort of get around the warning. But in the state of California, you will also find certain Banyan products that feature that warning. And it to be sort of safe. We could do it batch by batch and say, okay, this batch is at or below or above. And we've just made the general distinction that for the state of California, we would provide the warning level across any internal use products. Okay. That's great. Well, thank you so much, Devang, for detailing how you bring products in and the testing that you do. And it's so reassuring to hear that. And I really appreciate you going through all that detail. Can you tell me maybe some of your favorite products, or maybe Ayurvedic tips or top sellers, something that you enjoy, or maybe that you can recommend to clients? Yeah, one of my favorite Ayurvedic practices in general over the years has become Abhyanga, or self-oil massage. And obviously, it's nice to have somebody else do an abhyang on you, whether you're doing a full panchakarma cleansing program or not. But I've just found it very beneficial to have my own practice. So I don't do it daily, but I try to do it once a week. I have my ups and downs on how regular I am, but for many years, every Saturday, I just use that as kind of an anchor to a Saturday morning routine. Take an hour and a half to myself, do a quiet meditation or some gentle pranayama or yoga, Surya Namaskar, sun salutations, and then do like a 30-minute self oil massage. Get my favorite. So a couple of my favorite products from Banyan are Banyan's daily massage oil, in which
that.
we infuse lavender and lemon verbena into it, and it's you just warm it up, and we've got a really cool video on self massage. But I just have a corner in my bathroom. I put down a few towels. I put on some nice music, and I just put the oil on myself and work it into my joints, my fingers, my back, my neck, and then I leave it on. And then I'll even target, like with Mahanarayan oil, which is really good for your joints and muscles. I'll target that around certain joints if they're more achy. And I just found it as just a very grounding practice to do once a week, kind of to inaugurate the weekend, so to speak, and then have a grounding weekend. So that's definitely one of my favorite Ayurvedic practices.
Great. And that daily massage oil, it's tridoshic, right? Meaning that everybody, or each dosha can use it, and it's I love it.
So that definitely is one of my favorite things to do. One of my other ones that I find quite grounding is ashwagandha powder and milk.
Oh, yeah.
So boiling like half a teaspoon of ashwagandha powder, maybe even adding some turmeric, or it's not necessarily the best tasting, but I do find it to be a nice grounding way if I'm either, I can be very active mentally. So it's kind of a nice unwind in the evening is another one I like. And then for me, one of my favorite tablets of ours is our mental clarity tablet. Okay. Both that or Stressies. Just, it can be a little scattered brain. So basically you'll see all the ones I picked are ones that kind of bring that sort of scattered mind to a state of calm focus.
Right.
So,
right. You said you're high Vata constitution, so they're very balancing for
That's
Vata.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So doing an abhyang is very grounding. Having the oil on and the weight of the oil and the moisture to the skin brings that grounding quality to the body. I find the ashwagandha and milk also kind of brings it to the body and mind. And mental clarity has herbs that are really good for the brain to focus and keep it from jumping around as much. So
wonderful. Yeah, there's such a great array of products on your site. It's just amazing the different types of products that you have for each dosha, and it's great that on each product you have an explanation of who it's good for and the properties and its benefits. Yeah.
I'm a fan of our material, and I think that's an area where people can really start to learn, people that are on this path where however they've come to Ayurveda, whether it was through yoga or through a friend or through a practitioner, I definitely think working with a practitioner has its benefits, and you should be doing that because there's a guidance you can get for you individually, but also taking the reading and taking the understanding on your own and diving into it. There's this combined effort that you can have where you really start to develop that inner wisdom, and then the products support that process for sure.
Right. And it's the best study I feel that you could ever undertake because you're studying yourself. And once you know yourself, it makes your decision making and your life much smoother and easier because you're more confident and empowered in yourself. Yeah. Great.
The other product I like that we often take for granted, as we talked about digestion, is Triphala.
Oh, I love Triphala.
I talked about Triphala. It's one of our best-selling products, and it just kind of keeps that all three components of the digestive tract rejuvenated. So, having Amalaki, 3 fruits basically. Triphala means 3 fruits literally, and it contains 3 fruits from India. Amala, Bibitaki, and Haritaki, and each one is good. Bibitaki is good for the stomach. amalaki good for the small intestine, and harataki good for the large intestine.
Yeah, Triphala is amazing. It's definitely one of those products I really like to use as well, especially if I'm traveling. I think it's a wonderful product to take because our digestive system can get a little funky when we're traveling, especially
That's right.
with the Vata constitution. Great. Well, thank you. That was so great to hear what products you enjoy and you like to use. And I'm definitely a big fan of Abhyanga massage. It's amazing, and I recommend it for my clients all the time. And definitely recommend that daily massage oil with Banyan Botanicals is just delightful to use. Is there any other information that you would like to share with the listeners as we finish up here? Is there anything else that you would like to add? Or maybe where the listeners can find out more info on Banyan Botanicals, what links?
Yeah, definitely go to, it's easy, search Banyan like a banyan tree, banyanbotanicals.com. Botanicals has an S on it. We've got a lot of articles there. We also have a quiz that you can take to be a starting point to gauge your constitution and what your Ayurvedic profile is. That would be step one. I think step two, you got into the quality on the herbs. I just think it's important, just like we do on the foods that we choose, to just be aware of the company that you're choosing to use their supplements of. And in the age of Amazon, there's more and more companies that are just coming up that are just private label companies that are not necessarily purchasing the herbs themselves, building a relationship with their suppliers. And so to ask those questions, how long has this company been in business? What's their philosophy? Where are they sourcing their raw materials? Because there's a lot of companies there's a lot of great companies too that are doing what we're doing. And there's a lot of companies that are just coming up. They're 100% private label. They're only a marketing company. And so being able to distinguish between those companies that really have the herbal science behind them versus are really private label.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so important for me, and this is why I wanted to have you on the show, is it's so important for me to recommend high quality, that I understand a company's philosophy, that it's not just, buying products, but I want to support companies who are investing in a process and a really great philosophy and thinking about the environment, making sure it's sustainable, the products are organic, that they're fairly traded, that they have great relationships with their providers. All that I take into account when I'm spending my money on products, and I think it's something that people really want to know now, the source of their products, and also just the philosophy of the company, that it's a good company. It thinks about not just the products, but their workers and the environment and the whole chain that the products go through.
Well, we appreciate that, and we hope that we're providing products that are enabling those to follow their journey to optimal health and well-being. So.
Yeah. Well, you're doing a great job. And like I said, I always have such a great experience dealing with Banyan Botanicals, and everyone's always, customer service is always excellent. Products are always great. So Devang, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule and sharing the insights of the philosophy and the procedure of Banyan Botanicals. And I think it's really going to help the listeners to make their decisions and support Banyan, because they're doing such a great job in providing great products and under a great philosophy. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Colette, for your time. I appreciated talking with you today.
My pleasure. Take good care. I hope you enjoyed that interview with Devang, and he really gave us a great insight into his story about how he came to Ayurveda, what it means to him, and also, of course, Banyan Botanicals, the philosophy, how they source their products and how they're tested. And it's so wonderful that we have these high quality products available to us and produced by a company that is really values the tradition of Ayurveda and is very passionate about Ayurveda. So it's a great to support companies like this. And like I said, they ship internationally. I'll put the link to their website in the show notes. And that's it for today. Now, if you enjoy the show, if you're enjoying the content, please be sure to hit the subscribe button, and the new episodes will automatically download for you. And if you so wish, you could rate and review, and I would really appreciate that, because this will help others find my show in the search engines. So thank you so much. I really appreciate your support and listening to the show, and I look forward to bringing you another episode very soon. Take care, everybody, and be well.